So it's been 5 years since we've heard from Cigarettes After Sex. They've come up with their third album. It's called X's. In the meantime, we've obviously had COVID. They've been very popular on platforms like TikTok. Good morning to you, Al. Hope everything's well. What were your initial thoughts on this one?
Yeah, good morning, mate. Look, Cigarettes After Sex have been around for about 10 to 12 years now, headed by Greg Gonzalez, who basically is Cigarettes After Sex. This is their third album. It has been 5 years, mate, so there's been lots of anticipation for this album, and really it does follow on from their two previous albums. There's a few interesting tracks off this, but it's pretty much 38 minutes of the same kind of stuff to expect from Cigarettes After Sex, and that's not necessarily a bad thing if you're into that band. Now, we've had a look at Metacritic. We've got people reviewing this, giving it 50 all the way up to 80, so it's quite polarising, really, and the conversation for me is really what is different between this album and the rest. And look, as I said before, there's a couple of interesting tracks, but it's a little bit same. Now, whether that's a bad thing, mate, I'm interested in your opinion because I know this is the first time you've actually heard anything from this band.
Yeah, I loved it, actually. It wasn't too bad. You do have to be probably in the mood for this type of music. I was happy to be in the mood last night, as it so turned out. It is definitely in the shoegaze slowcore domain. So it is something where you're probably more suited to pouring yourself a glass of whiskey and listening to it on a sort of a Friday, Saturday night if you're lonely in front of the fire by yourself. That's paints a bit of a picture there. But I didn't mind it. It probably in terms of more modern influences, I saw. It did remind me of a kind of a slowish Tame Impala, just, especially with probably the third album. I don't know if that resonated.
Yeah, that's fair enough, mate. I've always kind of compared them to kind of 80s bands, really.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
when I first heard them, I actually reminded me of the band Spandau Ballet. Do you think that's a fair kind of reference with the bass in
They did Gold, didn't they? Was it Spandau Ballet?
True.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, maybe a little bit. Yeah, I haven't heard a lot of Spandau Ballet, but it's a bit embarrassing. It wasn't. Yeah, probably a little bit of that. The bass does resonate, doesn't it? When you listen to it, it's got a little bit of a sort of a riding bass. It does come out when you listen to it, which is good. I like that type of groove, if you like. That's interesting. I hadn't actually thought of that.
Absolutely, and really, this is probably their most consistent album, I'd have to say, from start to finish. As I was mentioning before, it's almost like one big track that's just been chopped to try and be radio friendly, really. Like, it's 38 minutes, pretty easy listening, but a couple of track highlights for me would be Baby Blue Movie and the third track, Hideaway. I really enjoyed that as well, mate. Was there any particular highlights for you?
I like the first track. It's the title track of the album. Yep. Ambient Slide was my favourite one. It just had a nice little groove to it. Again, I sort of recall back through the bass lines. I really, didn't mind that type of thing. I'm just trying to think of other influence. I mean, we've been listening to a little bit of The National lately. It sounds like should I say, a little bit more of an upbeat National, which isn't really saying a lot. if they don't really spread a little sunshine, The National. But let me know in the comments. A lot of people have potted me for saying that in the past, but I don't know. What are you going to give this out of 5 stars?
Yeah, look, I was going to give it 3, but I've given it 3.5 just because of the consistency. There's no real, I guess, dud tracks, and with a band like Cigarettes After Sex, it's pretty hard to have that because it sounds similar. Just before we give your rating, mate, they are going to do quite a massive tour, and I'm really interested to see how this particular sound is going to come across in arenas. I mean, they're coming to Australia in 2025. They're playing sellout shows. They're playing at Rod Laver Arena. How's this kind of sound going to come across? Because they do shows pretty similar to the album quality. I just don't know how this is going to come across in stadiums, mate.
I mean, if for those who are not from Australia, Rod Laver Arena is where they play the tennis, the Australian Open. So it's probably about 20,000. I'm just sort of thinking in terms of it, sort of an arena. So it's a pretty decent size. I can't see people jumping up and down and dancing. But then again, like you can see acts over the years where maybe bands or artists haven't been quite in that type of frame. Like I don't think people would be necessarily dancing to a lot of Pink Floyd's catalogue, but definitely wanted to show up. But it's a little bit more of an indie vibe than an arena vibe that they do draw off. But I guess if they're successful in doing that, you might be able to attract an audience. But for me, I'd love a setting that was outdoors for them, if that makes sense, where you could go up and I don't know, have a glass of wine at a winery and sort of chill out and relax. But I think in terms of my rating, I'm going to give this 3.5 as well. I really enjoyed it. I will be listening to this again. I think I have to be definitely in the mood to do that. I do wonder whether this is the band evolving, or they're basically just doing the same old, reflecting off the success they had with TikTok. Not sure, but interesting conversation. So let us know in the comments what you think. Do you agree or disagree with our take? So that is our review of X's by Cigarettes After Sex.